Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here in the Parenting Lab today. I'm so excited to bring to you a conversation that is going to be so impactful. I have invited one of my oldest friends, my dear college roommate, Shara Jackson Harper. So, welcome, Shara.
You.
It's so exciting to have you here. Shara is involved in the most amazing work. I'm going to let her explain to you guys what it is that she does, but you'll see very quickly why this is such a great fit for the Parenting Lab, especially for the mothers that are listening. So, Shara, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Brittany. It's so fun to be here
Sure.
with you and to kind of collaborate our passions together.
Yes.
They overlay really well. So I am a mental health therapist. I work here in Utah. Before I became a therapist, I was a childbirth educator, postpartum educator, hormone cycle awareness educator, and also a birth doula. So when I became a therapist, I merged those worlds of the mental health experience and like the hormone cycle experience, the hormone fluctuations across the lifespan during the perinatal period and also perimenopause. But the one of the things that I've found that's really interesting is if we talk about the hormone cycle experience and the way it impacts our mood, our view of ourselves, our communication, our behavior, maybe our anxiety changes over a monthly experience, right? Or depression symptoms, but also the way we relate to the people we love most. So this will show up in our partnerships and it will show up in our parenting. And so
Absolutely.
what I kind of came to was this understanding that we can upgrade our parenting in lots of ways. Understanding more about attachment helps us upgrade our parenting. Understanding more about our own childhood experiences, understanding that maybe probably the way our partner sees parenting, the way we see parenting might have some differences, and how can we collaborate well. But there's this other piece of understanding that if we have an understanding of how our hormone shifts impact our whole selves, then this also is a way to level up and engage in parenting with more responsiveness instead of reactiveness. So I
Absolutely.
call
No.
it cycle responsive parenting.
Responsive parenting. I love it. And I love that it's cycle responsive parenting because we're really connecting to our biology
Mhm.
in this way. And I think that so much of parenting, even in what we talk about on this podcast, is very much about changing perspectives and seeing things in a different way and really assigning the right language to what's going on in our minds and in our hearts. Right. But I think the missing piece here, and we talk about nervous system, and things
Yeah.
like that are going on there, but there is this biology factor to it, which connects so directly to our hormones and to just our feminine self in our bodies. And so that's what I'm excited to talk to you about today is how connecting this biology factor can impact, just like what you said, our responsiveness, our intuition. Like honestly, I feel like we learn to um not take into account maybe
Yes.
what's going on in our bodies. We I don't know if it's society, I don't know if it's just our culture that we
Mhm.
minimize the feminine body experience. So
Yeah, I
what are,
think
what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, absolutely. So I feel like overall, culturally, what we do is we either ignore it. So we're like sneaking the tampon in our sleeve or hiding the pad in our bag so we can take care of a period scenario, or we're joking about it, right?
Mm,
We're making
mhm.
jokes that can sometimes feel a little bit like, okay, we're joking about something uncomfortable, but sometimes it feels more like teasing, right? If we're
Yeah.
looking at media and watch TV shows and pretty much any female body experience, it is free reign for the jokes. And we've not yet figured out how to consistently be in the middle of not talking about it and making jokes to be like, hey, this is a lived experience. Most people, at least that I've interacted with so far, and there's obviously a variation of experience, but a lot of people learned as a preteen or teen how to just manage bleed week or your menstrual phase, right? And that's it. There wasn't a conversation about, hey, even in that phase, just talking about, I wonder if you might notice feeling more overwhelmed or feeling more tired, or do you need to go more inward? How can we accommodate the
Mm,
needs of that phase? It's just been like, you got to power through. You got to pretend like you're not bleeding.
Mhm.
That's what you got to do, right? And then the other big part is that we hadn't been introduced to the idea that actually there's four phases as the hormones are fluctuating throughout the month. You're going to experience kind of four different versions of you, right?
Absolutely. You know, it's crazy because Jared, like literally the first time I'd ever heard that was from you.
What? Yeah,
No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That has never come up in a class I've taken it's
right,
never come up. I've never had an OB tell me that.
right.
Pre babies, post baby, during pregnancy. I've
Yes,
never had one single person talk to me about my hormone cycle
right.
until you started talking about it. And then I'm like, are you joking me? It has changed the way I talk to my own daughter
Yes,
about her body.
right.
100%.
I mean, there's so many layers here, right? We can have a whole
Yeah.
conversation just about body image and the four phases. We
Hmm.
could have a whole conversation
Hmm.
just about couples. And I do have resources for couples, tips, like strategies for each of the four phases, because this does impact your relationship, whether you're
Absolutely.
seeing it or acknowledging it or not. It does. Most
Hmm.
people do acknowledge it, but it's really just like, yeah, I get mean, or from a partner's perspective in a heterosexual relationship, might be like, yeah, she shows up like this right before her period, and then I just kind of stay out of the way. That is not the way. What we
Right.
want to talk about is connection. And that's what we're talking
Hmm.
about in cycle aware, cycle responsive therapy. I mean, parenting therapy. We can
Hmm.
therapy too. Cycle
Yeah.
responsive parenting. This is like, I'm aware of my body, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to pretend like this isn't happening, but I can show up as the parent I want. It's just going to look a little bit different. So, for example, is it okay if I dive into the four phase?
Please. Yes. I was going to say that was where I was going. I'm like, please tell us about what
Okay,
are these four
perfect.
phases and how do they relate to parenting?
Great. So, four phases. We'll start with the menstrual phase. So, that's the bleed week. That's what most people have had the most conversations or the most interaction with in their body. Um, the hormones are low. The uterine lining is being released. A lot of people feel a lower energy or maybe more tired, or some kind of emotional sensitivity is very common during this phase. In parenting, when we're talking about this phase, so if there's four phases, then we've got menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal. So I'm
Yep.
just going to focus a little bit on the menstrual phase first. This is the bleed week. This is where, as parents, we want to really lower the bar for
Mm.
our own selves, right?
Hmm.
And increase gentleness. So if you know that if you're on your period, you know you're going to start your period soon, kind of calling it out. And this is one of the three strategies I talk about for parents, is that we're actually saying, I am a cyclical person. I experience my body in different ways throughout the month. Maybe you've noticed it before, maybe you haven't, but I'm just going to kind of talk about this a little bit. One, for education for all of us, and two,
Right.
for pretending that we're the same every day, but we're really not, right? This is kind of one of my taglines, is I'm not the same every day. Um,
Hmm.
then we get to kind of check in with ourselves and with our kids. So during bleed week, is it, I'm going to be laying on the couch with my heating pad and some chocolate. Would you want to be cozy with me? How can we just have a
Hmm.
cozy day today together? Right. Um,
Yeah.
maybe it's, you know, a lot of people are like a little bit more sensitive to their external environment right before or during bleed week or their period, at least the first few days. Um, we're gonna have some quiet music today. Uh, you are gonna have access to Bluey, maybe, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And and then can we just have this cozy connection time? Or for people that are like, I really don't want to be around people during my period, then we're kind of creating an environment for that. Guess what? Do you remember that box of building blocks that we put away last year? They're gonna be out tomorrow, and you get to do
Mhm.
whatever you want with them. Right?
Mhm.
Mom,
Mhm.
my door will be open, but I'm gonna be just having some quiet time for myself. I've got
Mhm.
3 audiobook options that you can choose from. There are snacks in the fridge, right? That we're being a little bit proactive. Not that,
Mhm.
I don't want this to come across as like, oh no, I have one more thing to do. That is not. I don't want you to do, I don't want you to add this to your to-do list. I
Yeah.
want to talk about how do we integrate this in a really just kind of holistic way for you and your family.
It's all about resourcing ourselves, right?
Yes.
It's about saying if I plan ahead and I know that this is part of my cycle, then
Yes.
it just becomes part of our new routine,
Yes.
right? So and a lot of times it's like it's not
Yeah.
adding something to the to-do
No.
list necessarily as much as I'm adding something here so that I can make space for something here.
Yeah.
Because I
And
think that
if
that's
anything, yeah, if anything, I hope we're maybe taking things off, right?
yeah.
When we need to, and adding things when we're ready to, right?
Right.
So lead week, let's engage in
Mhm,
the rest. If you have some shame around rest, about what rest means about you, that makes sense. That's a very
mhm,
culturally salient message. And let's unpack that. Are you,
mhm.
what do you have to do to earn rest? Nothing. Your body
Nothing.
deserves rest. And if your body during your bleed week is asking for rest, what would it be like to support your body system? What would it be like for the rest of the month if you really tap into that need for rest during that? I'm saying week. I understand there's a variation of time frames, but
Sure.
so really want to increase gentleness, allow yourself to rest during the menstrual phase. Then we move into the follicular phase, and something really interesting is happening here. As your estrogen rises,
Mhm,
your cognitive flexibility increases, your energy increases, your interest in being with other people changes. You might feel more motivated, you might feel more creative, you might feel more energized. This is an amazing time to be like, okay, I noticed that I would like to set a new routine for the family. It's a good time to start
mhm.
something new. So sometimes you might read or hear people talk about the 4 phase cycle, like the 4 seasons.
Okay,
So in that context, the menstrual phase is winter. So
okay.
slow down, cozy, warming foods, warming practices, cozy. Follicular then is spring. And what do we do in
Mhm.
spring? It's like, I'm awake
Yeah, we come
again.
alive.
It's I'm awake again. It's also like, what do we want to do this season, right? It's a planning time. You're thinking about,
Mhm,
maybe if we're thinking of the earth, we're thinking of planting things for your new season. So this is a great time to imagine new approaches in your family system. Try, like, think about a new system. Think about what didn't work last month. Do you want to do something different? Um, and really kind of starting to engage with yourself and your family with just a little more energy. And it can feel really great. And a lot of people will tell me, like, honestly, once I get through a few days of rest with my period, even in those last few days of still bleeding, I'm starting to get more energy because the estrogen is starting to rise and I can start engaging a little bit differently in my.
mhm.
So menstrual phase winter, follicular phase spring. So that means ovulatory is
Summer.
summer is magical. The ovulatory phase feels really great to a lot of people. This is when you
Mhm,
feel really confident, you're ready to go. This is a good time to engage in fun projects, or I mean, date nights can be extra fun. Like, orgasms are more easier to achieve during the ovulatory phase. Your face is more symmetrical during the ovulatory phase. Your hair is better, your
mhm,
skin is better. You feel amazing about yourself. Um, there's a lot of emotional capacity and relational capacity during the ovulatory phase. Um, and empathy is more available. This is a great time to have a hard conversation, right?
mm.
Like, I've been meaning to have this conversation with my teen. I'm gonna not do that when I'm having my lowest hormone phase of the menstrual phase with bleed week.
Yeah.
Wait until I really can converse well. I know my words are going to be easier to access. I know that sounds a little bit funny, but literally you have 4 different brain states because your brain is changing up to 25% during the 4 phase cycle. So you have a menstrual,
Amazing.
you have a follicular brain, you have an ovulatory brain, and then the next phase is luteal. Luteal will then match up with fall, where there's a slowdown. Our brains are
Mhm,
evaluating during the luteal phase. Very good for research, very good for problem solving. The challenge in the luteal phase, which probably most people who have, if you've been consuming any information about the hormone cycle experience, the luteal phase gets a bad rap because it's where a lot of emotions can feel tricky, especially late luteal. Luteal's the longest of the 4 phases. Early
mhm,
luteal will look a little different than late luteal. Um, if our brains are in problem solving mode, who is the problem?
mm. We are.
Yeah, we're having a lot of self-doubt, self-criticism, like our self-critical voice in our mind is louder and more frequent, which also shows up in parenting. If we're not feeling like we're a good parent, we often don't show up as a good parent because we're just
Right.
irritated with ourselves. It's easier to get irritated with our children. It's easier to get frustrated or annoyed or even angry at our partner, right? Because our brain is looking for problems to solve, and all of a sudden everything is the problem.
The problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we know that, if I know, so for example, if I'm driving home from work and I'm luteal, but I'm not really paying attention, and I come in and there's crumbs on the counter and the pillows are off the couch and all the backpacks are not on the hooks that have been designated
Mhm.
for backpacks, right?
Yeah.
All things, then I might respond, I might react in a way that isn't
Mhm.
isn't my best parenting moment, right? I've definitely done that.
Mhm.
How normal of me to do that, right? Okay, let's just acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That's compassion.
Yeah.
And if when I'm driving home, I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm getting to that late luteal time. I know that my brain is going to look for problems to solve. Are there going to be crumbs on the counter? Guarantee it. Are the pillows going to be off the couch? Probably, right?
Mhm.
Packs are going to be all over the place. So when I walk in, I've got more compassion for myself. I'm also acknowledging I still want to solve the problem, but how
Mhm.
can I do it in a way that isn't so abrasive and aggressive and maybe just really out of control reactionary? So instead, I'm going to say something like, hey guys, I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. Let's see how fast we can get this cleaned up.
Mhm.
And then let's have cookies. But I'm not going to make them. You're going to make them because I'm kind of in a mood. But I'm going to get all the supplies out and you can make the cookies and then dad can clean it up when he gets home.
Yeah.
Something, right? That we're really kind of paying attention to. I still want I'm still wanting to solve a problem, but I can do it a little bit differently. But I can only do
Mhm.
that if I'm kind of paying attention,
Mhm.
right? So really honoring your needs without outsourcing your power. You're kind of taking some power back in this conversation.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I love that you bring up power because I do feel, do you think that women, are we neglecting that as power? Are we seeing this as a like a liability more than it's an asset?
Yeah. Can it be both?
Right.
Right?
Right. And
Yes.
how do we do that?
Okay.
How do we
Okay.
do that? How do we change this mindset, this language in our minds that we have been taught?
Yeah. This is going to be a little bit tricky because likely I would be really surprised to find someone who hasn't collected a basket full of shame along the way about
Mhm.
how you might have reacted during a luteal phase, right? What does that mean about you? Or
Because
about
is that just like when people say like traditionally like, oh, she's PMSing, right?
yeah,
Is
that's what
that
we're talking
typically
about.
the
Yeah.
stage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Late
Yep.
luteal is the PMS. It's right before you start your period.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. That's really helpful because that's a common phrase. Everybody is familiar with that,
I
right?
mean, we've all heard it. Like she must be on her period. Like, mm.
Yeah, right. And we've experienced it. That's the thing too, right?
Yeah.
So you're
They're not wrong all the time.
they're not, it's not wrong and it's not a joke, right? You're
Right.
right. I'm feeling something different in my body. And so what do I need? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this also, so we've got the shame narrative about if I'm not the same every day, this means something about me. So I'm going to pretend to be the same every day. And then we have this narrative of, okay, but if it's a joke, I don't want to make that real by acknowledging that this is an uncomfortable part of my experience, right? So we want to bridge those two and say, I'm going to have some self compassion. Okay, my brain
Mm-hmm.
is changing up to 25% throughout the month. My body
Mm-hmm.
is changing. The way I feel about my body is changing. The way I feel about my partner is changing. These are just facts. So instead of pretending like they're not real, we can acknowledge them while also taking accountability. So I'm not interested in a conversation where people say, I'm just on my period, get over it, kids. That's
Right.
not the way. And if we've done that before, okay, we can wrap compassion around that. How do I want to do this moving forward? The change is then, hey, I'm on my period. What I've learned is I need more rest. This is what that means for me today. And I'm going to make sure you get your needs met too. Might just look
Mm-hmm.
different today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the power part, I do propose that there are superpowers in all four phases. And I also want to say it's okay if it takes some time or if that doesn't resonate directly with your lived experience because everyone's experience is different. I do think that like the period positivity movement is really amazing and has done some really good things.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not asking you to love your period. And I'm not asking you even to love your cycle. I'm inviting you, what would it be like to love yourself through it?
Mm.
What does it look like if you're gentle and mindful with yourself in each of the four phases versus shaming or blaming or again, pretending to be the same every day? what would it look like to really love yourself through it? You don't have to love it. It can be a really annoying part of your life. That's okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm not going to take that away. I don't think that that's very realistic. I do think we can consider, okay, if my body's asking for rest, is a superpower in the menstrual phase, I get to slow down.
Mhm.
I have permission to slow down. I'm going to give myself permission to slow down. This is going to look different depending on your stage of life, right? If you have really young kids, you can't not be doing the things to caretake them. But could you stay in pajamas all day if that felt good?
Mhm.
Could you go on a slow walk instead of hustle from park to park, right? Or could you
Mhm.
reschedule something that felt like it would be too draining for a few days down the road? Is it okay to say no to something, right? Can we have
Mhm.
a slow day? If your kids are in school and or if you're working, right? If you are going to work every day, so could you wear more comfortable clothes? Could you bring some comfort food? Could you
Sure.
instead of going to lunch with your colleagues, which is so fun, I highly recommend, please do that all the time. But if you're in this like I kind of want to go inward phase, what if you went and found a shade tree, sat underneath it, pulled up a little meditation? That's not going to be for everyone. I'm just giving some examples. Like, what would it look like to you to like hold yourself gently in
Mhm.
whatever phase of parenting that you're in?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's really the key phrase is holding yourself gently, because so many of the parents that I work with, they see these and what I know now as like these variations in our hormones and our cycle, right? But they really internalize this as a character flaw
Yes.
more than a biological reality. So
Yes.
what would you say to moms who really struggle with, but if I don't show up 100% every day, that means there's something wrong with me. Like I can't, I'm not living up to the expectations. So address that maybe
Yeah.
for me a
The
little bit.
reframe is the expectation is unrealistic.
Hmm.
And it might be based on someone who has a 24-hour cycle experience, which is our male counterparts. They wake up in the morning the same every morning. Their hormone cycle has a variation through the day, but it's kind of slow and waning. The end of the Western workday matches directly with when those hormones do a nice dip. Come home from work, maybe play a game, have some dinner, have sex, and go to bed. And then the lowest part of their hormone cycle is while they're sleeping. And they get up the next morning and do the same thing. So we're living
Hmm.
in a world that's moderated on this 24-hour cycle where that's just not your experience. But you are living in that world too. So you're managing two things. So Elisa
Right.
Vitti in her book, In the Flow, she talks about this. She said, maybe it's not a lack of time. Maybe it's not that you, that you're not a good parent, that you're not a good fill in the blank, whatever you're engaging in
Hmm.
with your life.
Hmm.
Maybe it's that you're managing two time clocks, but you're ignoring one of them,
Interesting.
right?
Hmm.
You're living this 24-hour world and you've identified that that's how you need to like this self-identification that you're saying like I'm identifying with myself when I feel low or feeling those more intense feelings instead of acknowledging like actually there's a variation of the way that I show up in the world. And in some
Yeah.
ways I this it's okay if this doesn't land, but I am going to put this out there. In
Hmm.
ways this is super magical. Like, you are actually a kaleidoscope. You know, when you look in a kaleidoscope and you shift it, and then all of a sudden the
Hmm.
colors change, the shapes change, the way the light and the shadows are bouncing off each other. That's kind of what you're experiencing. It's one way,
Absolutely.
and then you're
Hmm.
shifting, you're like, "Oh, I have more energy. I want to connect more. I want to do more things." And then you shift more, you're like, "I am the sexiest person alive. My hair is straight. Life's great."
Yeah.
No, because you've had this experience, and the challenge is then you shift again, and you're like, "What happened? I got everything on my to-do list done last week. I was on top of
Hmm.
things. I felt amazing. I felt so connected with my partner. I felt so in love with my children, and now I'm just like, what is happening?"
Hmm.
Right? And that is uncomfortable feeling. I will like absolutely. And also, it's not who you are, but it is what you're
No,
experiencing. So how do
it
you
is.
get yourself through it?
Well, and I love that you bring up a kaleidoscope, because the first thought that came into my mind when you said that is, but it's the exact same pieces.
Yes,
Nothing has changed. Like there's no addition, there's no taking out. It's literally the exact same pieces of who you are.
yes,
You're just changing the perspective just a little bit. You're just
yeah,
shuffling the order,
yeah,
but nothing in you inherently has changed
that's right.
at all. And so I love that.
Yes. And I mean, this again, I have a handout for couples that's really gives some context and some like tips and tricks. And then I have this handout for parents as well that I have a tip for each of the four phases because you are, whether you like it or not, sometimes I will have people because I do workshops for girls' nights or women's groups
Yes.
and things. And sometimes people are like, I kind of hate what you're saying because we've identified that if we can pretend to be the same every day, it makes us something, fill in the blank, good,
Mhm.
productive, boss babe, like I get things done, right? All of those
Mhm.
things
Mhm.
are so rewarded culturally. And I'm not saying any of that is wrong or bad. And it does shift the way we experience ourselves because even if we're getting things done, we might be wearing ourselves out. We might be experiencing burnout. Our depression might be increasing. Our anxiety symptoms might be overwhelming, but we're just kind of holding it all in because I have to be the same every day.
Mhm.
And the secret of the kaleidoscope is I'm not the same every day. And I get to experience the world with four different viewpoints.
Yeah,
And maybe that's a little magical.
it
Maybe
is.
a little annoying. Can it be both?
It can. It's a little bit of everything.
Can it
It
be both?
totally is
Yeah.
a little bit of everything there. No, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, there's so many questions that I have. There's
Okay.
so many ways. There's so many directions we can go. But first,
Yeah.
okay, so you mentioned you're talking about the 24-hour hormone cycle, which really
Okay.
brings in our male partners,
Yes.
right? I recognizing that not everyone has a male partner,
Yes.
but when we're talking about male partners,
Okay.
how can dads understand this and support us
Yeah.
in these different phases? Because I know that in my marriage, I really try hard to keep my husband very active in my life and like my feelings and what's going on. And we try to have a really open dialogue about stuff. With a new understanding, I can bring this new layer in, but what can he do
Yeah.
to help me? Right? Like,
Yeah.
what are our male partners? What can they do?
Great. Great. Okay. So, first of all, they're going to have to be willing to let go of some old ideas,
Hmm.
right? So, I don't know what their specific old idea might be, but it might be something like, well, I just want to stay out of your way during your period. Or whenever you act frustrated with me, I take it personally, and so then I get defensive, and then we have this conflict, right? And that has nothing to do with me. That's all about you and your hormones, right? So I would be really curious within a couple dynamic, and this would be a good conversation to have during either follicular or ovulatory phase when you're feeling okay in yourself, right?
Okay.
You're feeling a little more communicative, empathy is rising, you're feeling more confident. That's a good conversation to have then, not when everything's kind of feeling a little bit trickier, right? Let's come
Hmm.
from that place and just have a conversation. I wonder if there's any if you would be willing to share with me, and this is kind of vulnerable, but like
Hmm.
what messages did you get from your family of origin about women and their periods or women in their cycle? And that could give you a lot of good information about are we willing to change the narrative for our family?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, looking back at my family, I recall having a conversation with my mom about my period
Yeah.
one single time.
Right.
And that was the very first time I started when I was like 11.
Right?
And
Yep,
she just taught me how to clean up after myself.
yep. It was the
And then I literally do not think I've ever had a conversation with her about it since then. Not
yeah,
that it wasn't like, "Ooh, we don't talk about it." It's just like,
yeah,
we just don't talk about it. I'm like, there's
right,
nothing to say. Like, so it
right.
wasn't, I don't know that there was like a lot of stigma attached to it. It was just, I already told you that. I don't need to go back to that again. And my
Yeah.
husband was raised by a single mom.
Mhm.
And honestly, he didn't live with her most of his childhood. He was in boarding schools. And so I don't know that he had any experience
Right.
with the female hormone cycle or periods or anything until he married me,
Wow. Yeah.
which I mean, and then I have another question because anyway, I have another question about that, but keep
Yeah.
going with what you're saying.
Well, so you're saying in your family of origin, you got some information about how to take care of the blood experience, and that was kind of it. And there wasn't really this like negative stigma or teasing and things like that. What happens when we're not talking about things is that there is an internal message of like, I can't talk about these things.
Hmm.
And so sometimes that can be interpreted also is your body is unknowable, which I think is an overarching experience for women in Western cultures. The research, how many thousands of research studies have been done on erectile dysfunction, and we just finally mapped out the clitoris like last week. Like,
Yes.
like there's
Yes, I saw that.
disparity on the money and time we put into knowing and helping women know their bodies. is so low that the message is, whether even if there wasn't this like really clear stigma, the message is, I don't get to know my body.
Mhm.
That's not something that's important.
Yeah.
And so for dads, what is your internal bias? It might be not even recognizable, right? It might be like, I don't have any bias. And so then maybe you can unpack that a little bit. Like, well, what comes to mind when you think of periods? What comes to mind when you think of this, right? I don't know. You could have a conversation about that. The thing about learning to change something in a dynamic is all about education. As you know, this is what your work is like, I can
Yep.
give you tools, but this is going to require some learning here, right?
And unlearning.
And unlearning. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's, yes, the invitation for dads really is, are you willing to unlearn a few things? Are you willing to learn a few things? And let's try something new. And in this context, again, we're the people having the 4-phase cycle are taking accountability. Like, I recognize that the way I talked to you this morning was not how I normally want to talk to you, right? I'm going to take
Mhm.
accountability. And I also want to acknowledge that I'm feeling my bandwidth is really small. I'm overstimulated. Would it be okay if you took over dinner tonight?
Yeah.
Can I go take a walk while, you're helping the kids clean up from this thing, right? Can you do
Mhm.
the baseball practice and the piano lessons? I really kind of need a nap.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to give myself permission to rest.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I think that really is so connective in a partnership
Yeah.
to be able to say those things ever, but also to be able to say those things from a place of like body authority,
Yes.
I think is really key because it's not just me making stuff up to make things harder. This
Right.
is really me connecting
Yeah.
to who I am on a cellular level,
Right.
and you get to know me that way too. Like to me that seems so connective. Like I would love to have a conversation like that with my husband.
Yeah.
Like he understands so many other things about my body. Like why
Yeah.
wouldn't he want to understand this?
Right.
Right?
Right.
I don't know. I love it.
Absolutely. I love that too. I mean, my invitation to dads really also is to consider like how lucky you are to live with someone who experiences the world in different ways throughout the month. You get to experience that with them if you are willing, right? You get
Mhm.
to experience the softening during bleed week. You get to experience like an opening during the spring follicular phase. You get to experience like the fun of the ovulatory phase, right? Actual
Mhm.
so much fun. You get to experience kind of a slowdown with that luteal phase. And if there's this problem solving capacity, what if we did that together? What if I could, as dads, like, hey, I know. So I do recommend, honestly, if we're gonna change the conversation for couples
Yeah.
and parenting, having something like on the fridge, right? Some
Mhm.
kind of indicator of like, these are the 4 phases. I have a little postcard card people can download for free if you follow Growth in Her Seasons Instagram. Go to the link tree. You can download this card, print it, put it on your fridge, and you can put a magnet where you are in the 4 phases. That just gives the family information that you can start a new conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this kind of looks perfect because this
Okay.
other question that I have,
Okay.
and this is so that I don't know, I'm just gonna put it all out on the line. Okay,
Okay.
what about those of us that don't have a period? Because I have an
Okay.
IUD. I've had one
Yeah.
since my daughter was born. She's 18. I literally have not had a bleed week in 18
Okay.
years. I
What does,
don't know where I'm at in my cycle. What do
yes.
I do?
Okay, great. I love this question. Thank you. Okay. Well, a huge portion of your listeners are like, I don't know how to, I also have an IUD or some other scenario, right? So,
Right.
I recommend tracking for people that have a regular cycle and have a regular period in this way. I recommend tracking. I have a tracker that's on this cycle responsive parenting download. It's 2 pages of cycle responsive information and then 1 page that's a tracker that's focused. And I know you have an app probably that you like to track your things for people that are tracking. There is something about pen and paper. It's hard for me to describe, but I have 3 months at a time so you can really see patterns. And we're talking about mood shifts, we're talking about anger, irritability, a little bit more of a mental health skew to the things that maybe you're
Mhm.
tracking on your app. So highly recommend the
Mhm.
tracker for people who have a period. I also recommend the tracker for people who don't have a period. So if you have an IUD, you are not having a bleed week, your estrogen and progesterone are still experiencing something. It is not the same. It's
Okay.
not going to be exactly the same as maybe the intensity of the 4 phase cycle when you don't have an IUD, but it is something. And so in that case, I don't have bleed week. How do I know bleed week? How do I know how to track? So just day 1 would be the first day of the month.
Okay.
And then use this 3-month tracker. Pick 2 or 3 things that are high value to you. On the tracker, I've got calm and content, hopeful, optimistic, high energy, mid energy, low energy, anxiety, sad, depressed, angry, irritable, self-harm thoughts. So pick the top 2 that you want to know about, or
Mhm.
something not even on here, right? Maybe you want to track libido, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you want to track when your partner is more annoying to you or more attractive to you. Maybe you want to track when you react to your kids in a way that isn't your favorite way,
Mhm.
right? Oh, I yelled at my kids this morning. That is not how I want to parent. So I'm just going to track this and see if there's a pattern. If then I have
Mhm.
3 months and see, oh, between day 22 and 26, it is really difficult for me to stay calm when I'm overstimulated. So let's bring the stimulation down. Let's bring up the awareness and find some middle ground of this. Like,
Mhm.
I'm empowered because I understand my body. I have this authority to access my body information, that kaleidoscope information. So with IUDs, or even if someone's in perimenopause and is like, I mean, my periods aren't as consistent as they used to be, or for someone who just in their normal
Right.
phase of experience, like it's never very regular, just pick the first day of the month. Let's see if we can get 3 months of information for you. Just to start having the conversation of like, oh yeah, there is a variation. There are some things that show up
Mhm.
consistently.
Yeah. So let's say that I am tracking whether I'm like yelling a lot, because that's
Okay,
something that I
great.
work with a lot.
Yeah.
So if I'm finding that, yeah, like you mentioned in your example, like during this specific week, it feels like I'm yelling more,
Yeah.
then what phase might I be in?
Probably that would be late luteal.
Okay.
Um, what's happening is as your progesterone and estrogen drops, um, our capacity to deal with stress also drops. So cortisol increases. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So progesterone and estrogen drops, cortisol increases because estrogen is really good at help mediating cortisol. It's like, oh, there's some cortisol. Well, estrogen's here. We can help. So our
Mhm.
capacity for stress decreases as we go from early luteal to late luteal. And if we know that about ourselves, we get to make different choices. I'm telling you, tracking and cycle awareness increases your agency because you
Mhm.
make different choices about your day, about your week. And I want to just acknowledge also, sometimes you don't get to make different choices, right? Sometimes you still have to go through the day and drop the kids off here and do the thing here. But is there something you can change about the day? Something small, something that feels like I'm taking care of myself today? Can we
Mhm.
upload something to our network, our village that hopefully we're creating because it is not being created for us, right? That's a whole
Right.
nother conversation, right? Yeah. Whole other conversation there. Um, what are we gonna do to wrap gentleness around our experience? If I can track and see I'm yelling more on these days, okay, I'm more susceptible to a higher stress response. Do I need to go for a walk in the morning to be regulated?
Yeah.
Do I need to, like, really make sure I'm hydrated that day so dehydration isn't also a part of the equation, right?
Sure.
Do I want
Yeah.
to order out that day for dinner? Do I want to prep ahead of time when I'm feeling really
Mhm.
great? Do I wanna make some meals so that when I know that I'm really not gonna wanna do that, it's available? Or,
Yeah.
again, outsource to other parent. Um, you can plan around it. And
Yeah.
we're gonna just pour self-compassion on every time that we still have that experience of like, oh, my stress. So I mean, so this is another education piece that I'm sure you're doing with your clients and the people that you're working with is like, let's understand the stress cycle, right? Because
Mhm. Yeah. A
we
lot of that.
understand this, we can intercept like, oh, I'm starting to feel that feeling. I'm gonna go outside, take a deep breath. I'm gonna let my kids know, hey, this
Mhm.
is about you. This is about me. I'm noticing.
Mhm.
I'm noticing however whatever words you would use. Like I'm noticing my stress increase. I'm noticing I'm feeling more overwhelmed. I'm gonna take a beat, then we'll go,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
strategies you're using for stress, let's increase those.
I'm glad you bring that up because I do think there are some people, some especially women in this conversation that feel like if we start to talk about our hormones, then somehow we're excusing our behavior. Like we're using our hormones as a like, well, I'm just
Yep,
hormone. I'm just in this
right,
phase. And
right.
so it's like permission to not
Yep.
perform at our peak. But what you're saying isn't that it's not that it's just that our peak is changing like
Our peak
throughout
is
the month.
changing.
And so, yeah, what do we say to moms that are like, well, I don't want to make excuses. Does
No,
that make sense?
yeah, don't make excuses. This is not an excuse. This is an answer.
Mm-hmm.
This is a clarification. This is something. that could have benefited generations of women to be able to have this conversation. And so this might look like, to your partner, this is a lower energy week for me. I'm going to actually need to not do these three things, or I'm going to do these three things, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Or I need your support in this way. Um, I'm still responsible for my tone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still responsible for my words. I'm going to need some help in the evenings when I'm feeling extra stressed or extra
Yeah.
overwhelmed or extra. And for kids, it's going to be like, hey guys, my body actually has quieter weeks. So I'm in a quieter week right now. If I seem shorter or more reactive, it's not your fault. And I will always come back to repair,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not how I want to show up. So I'm taking accountability. This is not an excuse, but it is an answer. My kids are really good at this with me now because they're familiar with all of the things. And so all of my kids, if they're in a moment where I really am reacting like, whoa, I can't, I'm not really seeing you and I'm feeling overstimulated, they'll be like, Mom, I think you might need a deep breath. And I will say there's a time in my parenting, maybe 5 years ago, where that would have just caused me to be really defensive and like, how dare you? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A deep
Yeah.
breath.
You could talk to me like that. Yeah.
Right. And so that's work. That's work to be done. And so now I
Mhm.
might still feel a little bit of that defensive twinge, and I'll just like notice that, oh yeah, I'm feeling defensive. And I'll say, oh my gosh, you're right. I do.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm noticing that I'm more overstimulated right now. Can you take a minute too? And I'll come back and we can see what you need. Or I will say this other thing. So in this handout, there's 3 strategies for parenting. And one of them is that when connection feels easy, let's really engage in connection with our kids and our partners, right?
Mhm.
When it's easy, let's really engage. And the other thing is when patience is harder to access, so cortisol is higher, estrogen, progesterone have dropped, we have a lower capacity, this is not the time to have the big conversation. So my kids know this because they'll come to me and say, hey, I want to talk about signing up for this online class, or I want to talk about this field trip. I have this field trip paper and can you possibly drive, right? Decision making is hard for me when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so I'm going to say, I do want to talk with you about this. And when's the deadline? Okay, we have a week. Okay, in 3 days, let's come back to this. I'm going to put it on my calendar. So I'm not forgetting. This is not avoiding, but I'm going to optimize when I really can have a good conversation about this. And it's not,
Mhm.
and it's not in this moment. Right. And I know that because I feel it
Mhm.
in my body. We can't always
Yeah.
do that. The deadline is tomorrow. We're going to have to engage, or maybe have a partner come help, right? Hey, I'm a little overwhelmed. Can you kind of have this conversation, figure this out with them? But, when patience is harder to access, most of the time you can either have a pause or say, let's save this for in a few days. And I do this all the time. In fact,
Mhm.
my 15-year-old last night was like, hey, I need to, we need to figure out driver's ed.
Okay.
Right. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that feels like a big thing. Um, I am luteal, and so I'm a little more scattered. And so I'm like, yes, I'll tell you what, can we talk about that this weekend? Right? So it's Friday, so I've got Saturday. It just means that in the moment, instead of me reacting in a way that isn't going to feel good to him or to me and make him feel like,
Mhm.
"What did I do wrong? I just asked for help for this, right?" I can say,
Yeah.
I do want to talk about this. Can we talk about it this weekend? I'm giving myself also some front load time so I can start thinking about it. I can start thinking,
Mhm.
okay, what dates work for us? How do we want to do the things? As opposed to, I have to do it right now. That urgency, let's pull a little bit of that urgency out.
Yeah. Well, it really just ties into, and we kind of talked about this at the beginning. It's really intention. It really is about just doing everything we're doing. And that's so much of what we talk about in my programs and with clients
Yep.
and things like that is let's take this reactivity out of it
Yeah.
and bring it into a place where we can do this with intention because we don't want to just respond out of our default patterns. We want to be able to say, I recognize this for what it is. This is what I have to offer in this moment.
Yes.
And I think this is really the piece that we haven't addressed, which is why I'm so grateful that we were able to have a conversation like this today, because there is biology happening here. And there are things that are happening on this cyclic basis
Yeah.
that we're able to maximize. Like let's leverage what
Absolutely.
we're given here
Yeah.
to make us really, like you say, these superpowers to really just bring us into a space where we kind of take back that power that
Yeah.
belongs to us as women. I love
Right.
that.
And we really want to acknowledge that there's probably a part of you that really is frustrated when you do react in a way that's out of alignment. And I cannot say it enough, but like self-compassion, how normal of me, how normal of me
Mhm.
when my cortisol is higher, my estrogen is lower, for me to feel overwhelmed and respond in a way that isn't my favorite way. That makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense. And now that I know that about myself, now that I can kind of see this pattern, how am I going to do that
Mhm.
differently?
Yeah. So my last question that I have for you is for the moms that are feeling these fluctuations, as we all do, but now we have some language for it, right?
Yeah.
How are they going to know what is within a normal range
Okay.
and when they should start
Get
to seek support?
Yes. So if you are noticing self-harm thoughts, let's reach out to a provider, a mental health therapist. Maybe you have an OB midwife or family practitioner that's on your team that you really trust. I will say our medical providers are amazing. They're very good at what they do. They are not trained on this unless they have sought extra training. And so
Mhm.
acknowledging there's like a medical piece here and there's a mental health piece here. And so um okay, so self-harm thoughts, let's get some support there. If you feel like, particularly in the late luteal phase, this is where PMS might show up, but for people that have a more extreme version of this, their brains respond much more dramatically to the hormone shifts. There's something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is very overwhelming. Um, PMS times like 100. Um, if you're feeling those things, that's actually a mental health diagnosis. It's one of the few female-centered uh, diagnoses that's actually in the DSM. The DSM is that's just the diagnosing resource that mental health
Mhm.
practitioners will use. Um, so if you're feeling really, really out of control and behaving in a way that are very different from your values, that you feel like I don't know how I'm even talking this way, right? I can't believe I'm so mean to my partner or however it's showing up. Let's reach out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I love that.
get some
I love
support.
that. Thank you so much. Shara, how can people find you? How do they reach out to
Yes.
you if they would like
Okay.
more support or more information?
Absolutely. For my therapy work, you can find me on Psychology Today. Just go to Psychology Today, Shara Jackson Harper. There's a link there. We can do a free 15-minute consult if that's something you're interested in and see, or I can refer you out to colleagues as well. So I do presentations for girls' night
Mhm.
groups or other groups. If that's something you're like, actually, it would be really fun to get together with my girls and talk.
Yes.
This shows up for us. It's a really fun conversation. You can reach out to me and follow on my Instagram. So growth in her seasons.
Mhm.
And then I have a lot of free downloads on the link tree there. There's the cycle responsive parenting download. There's the one for couples. Um, I've got lots of other resources there that you can access, and we can be in touch that way.
Awesome. I love it. Shara, thank you so much for coming today. This is a conversation that, like I say, that I've been wanting to have for such a long time. I know that a lot of my listeners are going to be super excited about this. So guys, reach out to Shara. She's amazing. She will be such a wonderful resource for you. And seriously, call her for a girls' night because maybe
Do it.
I feel like I'd want to do that. And I want my daughter to be there too, because
Yes.
I know that you do a lot of period education for girls too,
Yeah.
and their moms. I've seen you do
Yeah, so
workshops for,
we can do mother-daughter things. The other
yes.
thing is, even if you're not local, so I'm in Utah, right? We can do virtual experiences
Mhm.
as well that are really fun, very fulfilling, very con
Yes. I just am so grateful because when you started doing this work, like just with your birthing classes and things like that, that's when it kind of woke up to me. And luckily, my daughter was still young enough that we could have a different conversation about her
yeah,
period, just to be able to be open with her. Like, you can talk to me about anything. If you have any questions, please come to me as a resource. There's nothing to be ashamed of in our home with her brother and my husband. It's definitely
yeah,
not ever been something that we've attached a stigma to in our
yes,
family. And so I'm so grateful to have the language and the capacity to be able to have those different conversations with my daughter during her teenage
good,
years. So I think it's
love it.
beautiful what you're offering. Thank you so much. Just want to thank everyone else for being here today. I will see you again next week where we will continue to learn about the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Thanks so much, Shara.
Thank you.